Hello and welcome to another episode of Bodyslams and Drop Kicks. I am joined by my co-host Dean, and we have a special guest tonight. We have T-Ben. You might remember him from his few appearances on the Buck and Boom podcast.
Hi.
A lot's happened in wrestling this week, so we're going to be covering a lot of the major things that happened. Dean, would you like to start us off here?
Yes. Congratulations go out to Finn Balor for winning the NXT title this week. We did say this was going to happen, albeit a week late, but we did actually say it was going to do. So congratulations to Finn Balor.
And the respect from Adam Cole at the end of the night when it showed them backstage, him giving him like the fist bump.
Yeah. Oh, interesting news. You guys are probably aware of this, but a certain Rusev has debuted in All Elite Wrestling.
That's pretty awesome now, because now each episode's going to be a Rusev Day.
Yeah. But the only problem is he's debuted at a wedding, and you know what happens when Rusev gets involved in weddings? It doesn't end well.
Weddings never go well in wrestling.
Very true. Very true.
The cake.
I kind of like. I was watching SmackDown the other day, and I did actually kind of like the whole Roman Reigns heel turn. It's actually, I think it's going quite well.
It's an interesting approach, especially because he's going to be taking on family, and he left Jay to do all the work on that last match and just came in to basically get the pinfall and hit the spear.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Did you watch this week's Impact phrase?
Yeah, I watched it. They had some really good moments this week.
Good friend of a podcast, Rohit Raju, was there.
Yeah. Now he's going to be taking on TJP.
I tell you what, I've forgotten how good TJP's work is. He's literally turned into like this generation's Dean Malenko.
Yeah, he's solid in the ring. Like, that's why he's the first one to win the Cruiserweight Classic.
Yeah, but unfortunately, WWE doesn't know how to use the majority of its wrestlers, which is a bit of a shame. I will discuss this on the Final Cut next, but the new movie Dune is out, which is based on a Frank Herbert novel. It actually stars Dave Bautista in it, in a role that's I'm not actually sure about because I haven't actually seen who he's playing yet. But it's from Denis Villeneuve, the guy who did Blade Runner 2049, which he also was a part of. So he knows the guy, and I must admit, I've seen the trailer, and it does look quite good.
Yeah?
I think it's quite good.
I don't think I've seen the trailer for it.
I'll send it you when the podcast is done, but it looks very good. It's kind of like a who's who of Hollywood acting. I know for a fact Zendaya's in it. I know Stellan Skarsgård's in it. I'm trying to remember who else is, but there's so many. It's unparalleled how many people, famous Hollywood actors, are actually in it. But not quite sure when it's out yet because of everything that's going on. But hopefully we won't have to wait too long for it.
Hopefully not. Did you hear Jeff Hardy wants to be Will-O-the-Wisp against The Fiend?
I heard something about that, yeah.
I think it'd be really good having The Fiend against Will-O-the-Wisp because all of Jeff's promos and Impact when he was doing the gimmick were really good. I love the Willow gimmick.
I do. Pardon our guest host. Is there anything else that we think we can talk about? Oh yeah. Carry on.
Sorry, go ahead, Trevor.
I was just going to say, how long do you think it'll be before Alexa Bliss actually joins the Wyatt family?
Won't be too long. Apparently, a lot of people are impressed with her on Twitter, absolutely nailing Sister Abigail. I seem to remember somebody in our fan group, in our wrestling group, actually said it was, what was it? Blister Abigail, and that sort of got was it a thumbs down or was it a load of I can't believe you just said that.
I can't believe you just said that. She said she put some stank on that, and hers looked more fluent than when Bray hits it.
That's kind of hurtful. Because if you were Bray Wyatt and somebody said that, you wouldn't exactly know how to respond to that, would you?
I think that works for Bray because his looks like more of that old school style, the way that he does it, like how he gradually goes into it, like he's relishing all the way down to the mat. So I think his has just like that little bit of dramaticness to it.
So what we're saying we would prefer, the drama or the precision?
I kind of like the drama, just
I do.
Bray's more presentation.
Excuse me. Yeah,
I just see it. I just see it turning into one of those anything you can do, I can do better bits, like Michael Jordan and Mia Hamm used to do for Gatorade.
Oh yeah.
Or like Jean-Claude Van Damme and Chuck Norris commercials.
Yeah. Yep. Anything you can do, I can do better. But I mean, you know what though? I mean, they've done a great job of making Alexa almost seem brainwashed in a sense, or that Bray is playing the puppeteer of pulling her strings. I mean, hitting Sister Abigail in the middle of the match, having her blank stares. If you've seen any of the prior segments with Nikki and Alexa backstage, you'd see the occasional creature popping up. So I think they've done a great job of, at least setting the tone. And, I've read that Alexa's actually really into scary movies. So she's really buying into this whole bit, and she's doing a great job of selling it.
Yeah, because she's done cosplay as Harley Quinn many a time, hasn't she?
Yeah, and then, I mean, you go back, Harley Quinn, Alice in Wonderland. If you go through some of her costumes that she's worn, it's been quite the collection of comic book characters and just characters in general.
Speaking of which, I actually was looking on Twitter, and I have sent Michael this. There was actually a cosplay of Zelina Vega as Harley Quinn, and the first words out of my mouth was "Take my money." Absolutely gorgeous. I kind of wish that she could actually do something like that, because she's not really used that well, is she? Not usually, as she should be.
Well, Lesla's been making her comeback slowly. Like, wasn't she like hosting a show and everything? Like, she's pretty much good enough that she can work any angle. And I think since it took a while for her injuries to recover, that they're just easing her right back in.
Yeah, she had a very bad problem with concussions, didn't she?
I think it was like her concussion or like her back or something. But I kind of like the angle they're doing now with her, because I feel like if they change things on her little by little, like have her like ring attire change a bit up until she ultimately joins the Wyatt family, just little nods like that and like changes in the appearance can make like big impacts, just showing like the influence growing.
I just don't.
What do you think they'll come up with for a name, though? I mean, do you think she'll be Sister Abigail, or do you think?
No, I think that's been used enough. I mean, they tried to do that when Bray was feuding with Finn Balor. So
Sister Bliss.
Probably be that, to be honest. By the way, we're talking about the Fiend. Nice to see that Braun Strowman hasn't really been seen in a while. After he lost the title, he's not been seen since. So are we basically looking at Braun Strowman basically being at the bottom of the pile?
I feel like they should have had him lose the belt back in the swamp match, because it would have been really cool seeing Bray rise up out of the swamp with the title around his waist. Would have been really cool. I feel like they should have ended it there with for the belt a bit sooner. But I feel like Braun might have to work his way back up. And with Roman Reigns back, then I think Braun's replacement spot has been refilled. So,
unfortunately.
My thing is with it, I mean, I'm getting kind of torn, because either Bray or Braun's going to have to take over a top babyface spot on SmackDown, because with Reigns going heel, who are you going to do? I don't know. Braun's a good babyface, but he's a better monster, but Bray's just creepy as hell. So how do you justify making someone who's creepy as hell a babyface?
well, I think this means there'll be a better opportunity for any of the faces. Like, if depending how this Zayn Styles Hardy feud goes, they could start pushing Jeff Hardy again.
Mm. Even though I'm not, I mean, don't get me wrong, I do love Jeff Hardy, but I don't think he should be pushed. I think, well, we're always on the saying of here that we think Big E should be pushed, but I've always said that I think Big E is being pushed a bit too hard too soon. So it's a case of if Jeff Hardy isn't pushed, then who is?
I mean, I would love to see them give somebody an opportunity, but that's just not the way that Vince McMahon rolls. He's willing to push the same button over and over until the well runs dry. I mean, the only reason that Kofi Kingston got his opportunity was because of the fan revolt. You know, the match that he had at the Royal Rumble and then leading up to it, you know, he only got pushed because of the fans. And without the fans, I mean, Kofi wouldn't have had it. And I'm surprised he held the title as long as he did. But the way that he lost it, I mean, that's just how much respect that Vince had for that whole movement, willing to give it to Brock Lesnar in 10 seconds or less.
Still don't know when Brock Lesnar's coming back.
He'll come back when the fans come back. He'll come back at some point. I mean, it'll be one of the big fours. I don't see them wasting an opportunity like that on a payback or a eliminate or like a no way out type pay per view. But I mean, it's going to be a Royal Rumble. It's going to be a SummerSlam. I mean, once the fans come back. So I mean, obviously with SummerSlam just happening, I mean, probably your best bet at this point would probably be looking at. I would probably say the Royal Rumble because, I mean, they're hoping to get fans sooner or later. And if it's not going to be the Royal Rumble, then, I mean, what a better way to come back at WrestleMania to take on Roman Reigns for the strap or something.
Yeah, I actually heard something last night, quite disturbing, that we know this past week that the Iconics have split up and they had a match and Peyton Royce won. The plan for Peyton, I think, is to go after the Women's Championship, but Billy has no plans. They have no plans for her whatsoever. So, don't get me wrong, I love the Iconics. I love their whole little like Mean Girls thing, but you can't really have Peyton Royce without Billy Kay, which is unfortunately that's possibly what will happen.
I think that, I mean, I feel like they should draw a program out of that because, I mean, you could definitely. I think Peyton is definitely marketable in the sense of you could push her for a championship. She's got the charisma, she's got the athleticism that you could put her in a program with an Asuka or whoever they decide to have with the women's championship at that time. But I mean, you could push out that storyline for a couple months to get, Peyton more developed as either a heel or a face. And I mean, Billy, I could see as a hell of a heel in this kind of a program. But that being said, I agree with you. I think it's a shame to cut them high and dry like that. I mean, they teased a heel turn for Peyton when they threw Billy in Raw Underground. And then, then she helps her up last week like it never happened and that she cared for her and whatnot. I think they could pull off, at least for a month, a best friend versus best friend type of rivalry, like what we saw with Shawn Michaels, Triple H. There's no Billy Kay without Peyton or vice versa. I mean, get Peyton more comfortable and working singles in that perspective. But no, it'd be a shame to cut that high and dry.
Well, that's what might even happen. Speaking of high and dry, WWE's done a lot of firing this week. It's mainly to do with live staff, the ones who do live stuff. But Gerald Briscoe has also been released as well.
And that's a shame. That's a shame. I mean, you look at what a lot of these guys had done, and even when they started stringing out the releases where they had the superstars and some of the officials going, guys like Mike Chioda, guys that have been there since the beginning, Gerald Briscoe. You hate to see guys like that have given so much to the company, and then I get it, circumstances are bad, but how hard is it to furlough somebody instead of just outright releasing them? I mean, those guys are staples.
You know what will happen? As soon as everything goes back to normal, they'll rehire them again. You know that.
I don't know. Briscoe's got some announcement coming on Wednesday, if I remember seeing correctly on that. So I can't see him. I can't see him going to AEW or anything like that. He'll probably start his own podcast.
Yeah, you do actually know that Joe Briscoe is the reason that we actually got Brock Lesnar in the first place.
Yep, and also probably my favorite wrestler right now in Otis too.
Oh, another bit of news regarding him. This was actually announced during Talking Smack. Mandy Rose has been traded to Monday Nights, and she basically didn't like the fact that Miz waited until then to announce it. I mean, it could do her some good. Be a nice fresh start for her.
I honestly think you could probably move heavy machinery out of that as well, because it's not going to make a whole lot of sense for Otis to try and cash that money in the bank on Roman Reigns.
He won't do it anyway. I bet this will be one of those like early next year jobs, if not WrestleMania time.
But I mean, I could see, I could see possibly a swing, kind of like how Dolph Ziggler wanted after WrestleMania that one year to beat what was it, Alberto?
Yeah.
I could see a swing like that. I could see Otis trying to cash in more on a Drew McIntyre after getting kicked, or Randy Orton, whoever they decide to put the strap on next. I can't see Otis beating Drew, but I mean, if you maybe knock it down a swing or two, I don't know. I don't see how they can pull it off, honestly, but I would love to see Otis win it even for just a minute.
Rumor has it he might even cash it in on one set of the tag team champions, which hasn't been done before.
I feel like next week's the perfect time because you have the champions versus champions match, and like it would be the best time because it gives him like the pick of the litter, like which team are you gonna pick off, the ones who won or the ones that lost.
To be fair, you could actually be quite smart about this and interject in both of them and literally have both titles at the same time.
See, that would be good.
Here's the other thing. I don't know if you guys have heard this, but there's a rumor going around at Clash of Champions they're going to unify the tag titles.
I heard something about that.
I didn't hear about that.
So it would just be the same premise as the women's tag titles. The champions would be on both Raw and SmackDown. I mean, it makes perfect sense. There's no point in having two of them, especially if you're going to have the women's division doing the same thing. I mean, the tag teams don't get utilized as it is. So,
especially with the women's tag team titles debacle, which we've had.
You know what I would do? If they united the belts and I won if my team won them, I would hold on to that Money in the Bank suitcase and then I'd go cash for the NXT ones and then just have like all the sets of the tag belts. Because there hasn't been many teams that could say like they held the multi belts at the same time, like besides maybe like Miz and Big Show.
Seth Rollins.
Well, and I always love that perspective of when, TNA had, what was it, Kurt Angle and Samoa Joe had every title. Something like that. And I know WWE tries to not copy their competitors, but I'd love to see heavy machinery with the chunk of belts there.
I would.
I'm also worried the two belt things being overmilked lately because now like we had Sasha and them being like two belts, Banks and stuff, and we've seen Rollins do it. So I feel like the two belts thing's starting to get overmilked a bit because I remember like back then when that happened, like that's a huge achievement, and now it's just like anybody kind of does it. Like when the Miz did it, like it was pretty big because a lot of people counted the Miz out,
But now it's not. It's just kind of like, well, we see this every week. What's the point of it?
Exactly. But I feel like with the tag titles, that would be something special because you don't see a lot of teams pull that off. I think the only other team I could have seen pull that off back in the day would have been like, remember when Carlito and Primo did that against Miz and Morrison? Mm-hmm. Like that was pretty big for a tag team. When it all first started, but now unification matches are just becoming too regular. Like I remember when they used to unify the hardcore, the IC, like all those were big moments, but now it's not. It just feels like we get it on a whim now.
2-man power trip in 01 as well.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can hear us.
And I feel like the 24/7 title's really stalled lately. Like I kind of was hoping to be more like the hardcore title.
Yeah.
where anything and anything could happen. Like when R-Truth was on the plane, remember that? Like that was exciting, and just
Yeah.
it feels like it really stalled.
Sorry, I'm ordering my wife lunch right now, so I'm kind of multitasking.
No worries.
That's all right.
What's on the menu today?
Arby's.
Nice.
Yeah. In terms of the 24/7 title, I do miss the creativity that they installed. Thank you. I miss the creativity they installed with it in the beginning. The airplane, the gimmicks. You know what they did at the Raw reunion show? Things like that. Now it's just R-Truth versus a bunch of ninjas every week.
God.
And the
Pretty
occasional
much.
sprinkling of another Raw talent.
Should we say that's it for the news? Although if it is, there is one thing I would like to add, and it actually comes back to Dave Bautista. I actually have a tweet here from Alex at Talksport, who is a friend of Simon Rothstein, who's a friend of the show. This is actually Dave Bautista on his acting career versus The Rock, and he says, Dwayne was, in a way, a movie star before he was even a movie star. There is something about him that's really special. I'd never take that away from him. He says, would I consider him a great actor? Fuck no. I want good roles. I don't care about Fast and Furious or Bumblebee. That's not the kind of stardom I want. I want to be in Dune. I want to work with Denis Villeneuve. I want to work with Sam Mendes and Jodie Foster. I want to work with Academy Award winners. I'm proud to be a character actor. I want that respect and credibility and education. You can see his point of view, though, can't you?
I see his point of view, but The Rock's box office numbers would speak differently.
Yeah, definitely. But I do get what he means about being a serious actor, because he was in Blade Runner. I barely recognised him, and he wasn't the Dave Bautista that I've known for 20 years nearly, that I've seen for 20 years. So I can definitely agree with him on one point, but I do see your point about how Dwayne Johnson is basically a box office. What's the word I'm looking for?
Smash.
Well,
That's it.
Smash.
Yeah,
But
that's it.
it wasn't necessarily that way before, though. I mean, you look at what he did. Thank you. You look at what he did before that. I mean, some of those movies were just flat out duds. I think after Walking Tall, I think that's where it really kind of took off for him. And the sky has been the limit for him. And plus, he's got that calling card to Vince McMahon whenever he wants to come back and wrestle. Which the last 2 years have been wrestling, or a rumor of wrestling Roman Reigns, which I would love to see that sooner than later.
Yeah, I would as well.
He's got that calling card. I mean, the dude is just solid. And those box office numbers are turning into financial numbers that you would never dream of. He just bought a football league, for crying out loud.
Which his ex-wife is now running, it's actually quite funny that you can actually have somebody and an ex-wife still get on quite well.
Well, I think I think the realization is that they're business partners, but they also have more in common because they have a daughter together as well. So at the end of the day, a business relationship that works, and especially with somebody that is your significant other or was your significant other at one time, it's a win-win. You don't ever have to fight for money because, you split everything 50-50.
Making a share of the profits.
And you know what? And even then, The Rock marketed himself in WWE, but once he left, she's the reason that he became as successful as he was, in my opinion.
That might have had something to do with it, but Dwayne's always been great.
She took that rocket and blasted it.
Pretty much.
I do have one more. Who do you guys think the mystery woman's going to be on SmackDown? I think it's Carmella.
I heard that on Twitter yesterday.
I kind of would like it if Karrion Kross manager Scarlett turns out to be her.
Well,
just because with him on hold right now, it'd be good.
Yeah, since he's hurt, you might as well give her something to do.
I'd love to see her wrestle, though. Because she can actually wrestle. It has actually been pointed out that she can actually have a good match, but I don't think we're going to see that as long as she's in WWE.
She got Davey Richards to dance in probably his best segment ever in wrestling.
She did a lap dance with Scott Steiner once. God, I was so envious. Who doesn't want a lap dance with Scarlett?
Oh, good times.
I know. Is that it for the news? So we can move on to our topic of the week.
Yep, we can move on to the topic if you want.
Right. As everybody knows by now, me and Mikey are involved in eFed Wrestling, and definitely unbeknownst to everyone, Trevor is as well. So for those who just basically listen to this and say, what is eFed Wrestling? I think it's time we gave them a bit of a crash course. So who wants to? I think Michael should start, considering he actually is on the board of directors of one.
eFed Wrestling is fantasy wrestling, where you write promos to get your character over, and the person with the best promo wins. They incorporate storylines and chats talking IC, which means in character. It's built to build up angles and to build up your characters, and then people will judge said promos for entertainment and realisticness. Sometimes there are sillier gimmicks, but it's basically like wrestling, just without the actual physicality. More like a script, as if you were reading a book.
And less gym time as well, so we can do more of everything else.
Well,
And there's also audio, video.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it for me, it's an opportunity to be creative. It's an opportunity for guys that wish they could be pro wrestlers, and it gives them a chance. Now, is it on a physical basis? No, but you see a hell of a lot of creativity. And, honestly, I always say that we could give booking a run for their money on just about any show, because, guys that we work with, Austin Buckner does a hell of a job basically being a storyteller. I mean, he writes everything out, but it's what the guys give him that make him successful, or that makes at least the one group that I'm in Red Band Pro Wrestling, that makes it very successful.
To be fair, I actually won a belt off him 3-4 weeks ago, so I can definitely vouch for that.
And then you beat me last week, so
I did.
Kiss my ass, Dean.
I beat everyone. But I must admit, it's kind of like investing when you have off periods. I've actually been quite good for the last 4 weeks. I've actually had quite a good role with my promos. But the only thing is, I've been through dry periods. I went through a 6-month dry period once, where I just couldn't. Where nothing was gelling, nothing was going together. And yeah, it does. You do get out of it eventually, but it's still there, and you always aspire to better yourself on various levels, whether it be creativity or delivery. I mean, Austin, who writes our matches, he's always these guys will vouch for me on that. He's always going, I need to make the match better than last week. I need to do this better than last week. He's always pushing himself, creativity style.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, he does it while balancing a full-time job and a relationship and being a father of 2 boys. I like to give him crap about booking, because somebody has to be the guy that criticizes everything that goes on that happens, because I like to wrestle more than once every 3 or 4 days. But you know what? It's the gift that keeps on giving. And we have a great group of guys, and as long as I can remember, I've been on Facebook since 2007, and I've been in eFed Wrestling and involved in some way, shape, or form since 2007. So it's been fun to see how it's developed. Initially I never thought it would be what it was, but it has definitely grown into something that, when I have the time to do it and I have a match that, I like to put something together. I've worked with Michael. I've worked with Dean. I'd like to actually work more of a program with Dean, but it just gives us an opportunity, really to express yourself. I mean, it gives you an opportunity to be a pro wrestler without having to do all the physicality of it.
All right, boys. All right, then. I'm pretty sure you two can answer this. What is the structure of eFed Wrestling?
Every company I've worked for has been different. Initially it was a voting system where everybody voted, and then Like Red Band, there are a select few of people that handle the votes and whatnot. It's the people that do it on a regular basis that handle the votes, and that way there's no favoritism. There's no Austin doesn't book his guy to win the world title every week or to be world champion and defend it. He looks at it from a perspective of everybody, when you work, it's a work hard, play hard type of atmosphere. Guys that put in 100% are rewarded for their work, and the guys that that forget to promo and don't promo occasionally, they lose their matches. I mean, it's when you put in the time and effort, you see success from it. But there's voting. I mean, there are different ways. I mean, it depends on the storyline sometimes, but usually it's a fair vote, and there's no, at least I can't speak for every brand, because certain brands, not to be named on here, that get offensive and threaten legal actions against people.
We know which one you mean as well.
They don't, or Austin does a great job of making sure it's fair for everybody. If it makes sense for Austin to win the world title, he's going to ask us about it. And it's not just going to be, oh, I'm putting the belt on myself and I'm going to carry it for 2 years, Bill. Nobody's going to want to be a part of that. I mean, that wrestling organization speaks for itself, and why it tanked. And Red Band is a fun way to meet new people. I've enjoyed getting to meet Dean. I've known Frazier since the Stone Age. When I met Frazier, he was kidless and girlfriendless, and now we're both married and we both have 2 kids. So, that's how long this has developed into a friendship here. And, I can talk wrestling with you guys all day. And, but yeah, I mean, it's a well-established machine, at least in my eyes, at least with what we're doing now, compared to what it was 10 years ago, where everybody used to vote and then you have to try and write a match out.
Yeah. Well, I must say, when I actually used to do my match writing, I used to write it all out, and then I used to have 2 endings. And it actually used to be quite good, but it's been that long since I've actually wrote one. I actually am kind of a bit on the, not so much on the dodgy side, but on the, how do I write, the uncertainty side. But yeah, matches can be as descriptive, or if nobody bothers promoing, you can just make it as short as you want.
Well, I've been in a number of groups where literally it was like each promo is counted as a vote, so you could promo like 100 times and basically get like the votes, who's popular kind of thing. And when there are other groups I've been in where like they did it by card draw, deciding who wins. So like even if you're the guy didn't promo against you, you could somehow still lose the match, which didn't make sense. It's a lot like independent wrestling when you're in front of like different crowds, and the way they do things and the things that they like, it's a lot like that. Sometimes you won't even get a full match run. You'll get maybe like a sentence of you hitting a move off here or something like that. So I've been in a number of different groups: Ultimate Wrestling Zone, Facebook Wrestling Fantasy, the other FWF, Heavy G
UFW.
Wrestling Federation, UFW. I've been in WWA. I've been in EFED World Tour, Network Wrestling Alliance, Pro Wrestling Revolution.
Yeah,
RPW.
He's literally done everything that has either 3 or 4 letters in it.
Pretty much. And you really do see the difference. Like when I first started coming around to the network, I noticed how they did it over a lot of other feds, how full shows were written, how people paid their characters and everything. And I more so left those other groups and started staying here because a lot of the guys actually talk to each other. They forge friendships and everything. You would get like the EFED offer here and there for different groups and stuff, but it never had like that same feel as coming over and EFEDing with you guys.
Yeah, we should point out this isn't like in levels of WWE, AEW, Impact. This is actually more like if you don't like the group you're in, you can just leave, go join another one, which I think pretty sure everybody has left out of our other one by now.
If you think about it, it's kind of like the old days of the wrestling territories where you could pretty much go anywhere. It's a lot like that, and everyone's pretty friendly. You do get those groups where it is kind of more toxic, and they're constantly in IC, and you'll say something, and in general, they'll just use it against you and mock you, and they'll edit your face on ridiculous stuff and be poor sports about it. And depending like where you're from, like if you're like from Canada or the UK or somewhere else, they'll tend to like mock where you're from entirely. So it really depends where you go.
Yeah, I actually had somebody, I won't name his name on it. He was actually a nice guy in real life, and he did actually used to do Sting back in the day. And he actually used to say the guy from, what was it, from the UK in the Emerald Isle. I'm like, I'm not even sure if I should be complimenting that or not, if that's actually a compliment or not.
I'm not sure.
Neither am I. But don't get me wrong, I think he actually did Sting better than Sting. But that's the beauty of it. If you actually play like a real life wrestler, you can actually do stuff that are better, do promos that are better than the actual ones. I mean, I've done Austin Aries, but Austin Aries would just literally laugh at me and just literally kick my ass out of the park. Literally.
Well, it's funny. Some of these feds have actually been found by people who used to wrestle on the indies, like Quan Chang. He was a pro wrestler. He founded the Network Wrestling Alliance. Austin was Austin Savon, and he's run a number of groups. Dustin's done training with Harley Race Academy and stuff, and he's pretty much shared some of the stuff he's learned.
Wasn't Jordan Grace used to do like he fed him before she became an Impact wrestler?
I heard something like that.
So, kids, if you do E-Fed wrestling, that's a great start to your wrestling career, is basically what we're saying here.
And some groups started them so like people who wanted to be pro wrestlers could practice their promos and gain a bit of skill before coming in, and and a little understanding of character development.
Well, and before the development of technology, it used to just be a write your own promo. So you'd have guys with no grammar capabilities, no spelling capabilities, no writing capabilities in general that would just write these long written out sentences. And, I used to be guilty of that. But, technology has expanded so much now that people are doing video promos and very well written out promos. And, some of these people can just be flat out storytellers. And, that's one thing I've enjoyed about it. But I have enjoyed the diversity of this all because, when I started out, my favorite wrestler was Shawn Michaels. So all the feds I would do was Shawn Michaels. And then, then it started turning into be your own person. And, my guy per se has been, I had a lot of success in one league and, I've stuck with a pretty good core group of guys with what was initially the Network Wrestling Alliance, and then it turned into Wrestle Arts Revolution and is now Red Band Pro Wrestling. And, there was at a time, where you can have the guys be the same. And, there was a joint allegiance for a while that it was kind of like a storyline takeover. And, it was actually pretty fun to see the groups, and it was even booking. It wasn't just one group dominating another.
It wasn't.
It's been a lot of fun to see its growth.
Actually, the best thing about because we actually had a Red Band Pro Wrestling versus NWA, I actually kind of enjoyed it because it was like, right, this is not WWE versus AEW. We can say whatever we want about the other company, and we don't have to worry about backlash from anything.
It was interesting when we'd see each other's characters crashing each other's shows, or someone would like pee in the ring and then DDT somebody into it.
It was literally like WWE/WCW Invasion. Only our invasion was done better than theirs was.
Yeah, we had a lot of back and forth. It wasn't just like squash the opposition.
Well, and it wasn't the WWF A players versus the WCWC team.
That's true as well.
I also loved when people would like inbox me and they'd be like, "Hey, can I like rush on the show this week and do this or do that?" And it's like, yeah, just write up a thing, send it my way. Like when I got Trevor to come in and we got that big storyline going for him, and he was pumping all these awesome ideas and getting really amped, and him and Marine were going back and forth and everything. Like it was really fun to watch play out, especially their last cage match and everything.
All right, so for everyone who's listening, obviously with EFED wrestling, like real life wrestling, there's been world champions. So have we three been world champions?
Yeah,
I've
Trevor's
been.
won both versions of the war title from the heavyweight to when it became a world title.
I've won two. I've won two world titles. One in FWF, one in. In fact, I was the one and only UFW World Heavyweight Champion. So I've been champion twice. I've won my fair share of, I'll say, middle titles.
You were also WWA champion in the original company.
Yeah, this guy's a history machine. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, he's the historian of EFED wrestling.
You see, this is how bad it is for me. I can't even remember half of the groups I've been in. So I just always, I always make the excuse that
I forgot half the titles that I held in the NWA, and then Mike's like, "Oh yeah, hey, you had the Intercontinental title and the tag titles and the United States title and the world title," and
yeah, I have an easy way out.
I don't even remember holding half of these.
Yeah, I have an easy way out. I just say I've been concussed so many times I can't remember anything beyond last month.
I've been NWA World Champion. I was the last one in the original history. I was the first in the new NWA. Then I was the only one to unite all three versions of the belt. Mm-hmm. I've been War Heavyweight Champion. And I've won like every belt in the Rustlords Revolution except for like the mini title. I've held a ridiculous amount of belts. I was the only X Division champ in EFED World Tour history, the first and the last.
Mike also kisses a lot of ass, if you can't tell.
I've had interesting characters, so
it is actually a lot of fun if you actually put the time in. All right, then. So since we've talked about how voting and all that works, since Mikey is on the board of directors, he can explain how the voting system works.
All right, basically when they look at criteria, they'll look at punctuation to grammar usually, because a lot of people are kind of like uppity about it. They'll look at the they'll look at it, the segment's entertaining, and you will get your rough judges who will be like pretty rough on you about it until you like wow them. So they look sometimes at realisticness, consistency, the tone of the promo. It's a lot like when you see someone cut a promo on TV and you have your own personal opinion about it. You get to hear different opinions of everyone. And sometimes you'll get some good criticism back, and sometimes you'll get some lackluster ones. Sometimes if you get a lackluster one, if they go, I don't know, it's just better, they won't count the vote because, you know, it could be strewed as just like they just threw it out there because they didn't want to like do it.
I have actually done my fair share of voting as well, and it is actually a lot harder than it sounds.
And a lot of people take it the wrong way. Like we had a situation a while back where one guy called out a way someone would cut their promo, but they then cut a promo that basically someone else has been doing for weeks saying the same thing. And then sometimes you get people who take it well, and then sometimes you get people who will take it too seriously, because at the end of the day, it's just a hobby. And some people just take it way too seriously. Like we're all here to have fun. And if you're not having fun, then, you know, take some time away and reinvent yourself.
Which many of us have actually done for various reasons, whether it's been difficulties at home, whether we just needed some personal time, whether it's been on holiday. So everything does it, but the only difference is we don't have to go touring all about 2 weeks of a year.
Pretty much.
Yeah. I must admit, I do always ask for judges' opinions because I always want to know where I've gone wrong with stuff. I've even had the scenario where somebody 1 week says it wasn't enough of this, and then I did that, and then the next week they turned around and said it was too much, and I'm like, I'm trying to do something to impress you, and all you're doing is making it 50 times worse, but it needs to be.
most of all, when cutting promos, I just look at having fun. Like half the stuff I've been cutting lately is just me having ridiculous fun, and win, lose, or draw, I just continue to do my own thing.
Sometimes I actually look forward, or I must admit, when we had our tournament the other month, I did actually plan for Austin, and I didn't really focus on Mike that much, and I did actually lose that match, and that's kind of what peed me off a little bit. But I
It
got
does
there
happen
eventually.
though.
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, from a perspective, I've been doing it. Oh God, I can't remember how long I've been doing it. I've probably been doing it about 15, 16 years. Suffice to say, if there was a millionaire or a billionaire who decided to give eFed Wrestling a proper mainstream opportunity, I would say sign me up right away. And I bet all three of us would, not just me.
Honestly, with half the stuff I've seen play out in eFed, I feel like half the guys we know could write like really good pro wrestling comic books.
I mean, if you come to think of it, you could even have the audience vote for who wins.
Pretty much. Like
Well, and go ahead, Mike.
you could treat it like a scripted show kind of thing, really, if you wanted to, where it's interactive with fans voting in. If you really wanted to take like an interesting approach to
Yeah.
see how like the viewers could control how the story plays out, like the whole thing that happened with Jason Todd, it would be interesting. Like Stephen Amell has that show coming out, Heels, and I'm curious to see what
Yeah.
he does with it. Go ahead, Trevor.
I think that and I've always said this about Austin, and don't let him hear this bit, but I've always said that Austin would be a hell of a WWE writer. Like the way that he goes through and plans out, each and every bit for everybody that wrestles in Wrestle Arts Revolution and now in Red Band Pro Wrestling. The way that he writes his shows out and what he puts into his shows, he would be a hell of a writer. He'd be if you put Austin Buckner in charge of WWE Raw or SmackDown instead of Bruce Pritchard, that show would go up tenfold, and people would get pushed, not just your big dogs. So Austin, if you're listening, your booking's still garbage.
That's right. Build him up and then knock him down 15 more paces than he was.
I can't like it. His ego gets any bigger. I could see it floating from Iowa. So
T-Bent 101. Set him up, knock him down.
Oh dear.
I think I'll put that on a t-shirt.
You could actually do that, actually. Plenty of companies out let you design your own t-shirts. In fact, I've actually done that before. I've actually made my own t-shirt. I can't remember what store it was, but it's an online store where you can customize your own t-shirts. I forget the name of it, but some of us have actually used that before. I mean, I've used it. I think Gully's used it. I'm sure you've used it as well, Mikey. I'm sure you have.
When we first showed up in FWF, the guys were making their own shirts just to make it seem more like a wrestling company, like promoting their shirts coming out, and everyone would update it when gimmicks would change and everything, and just little details like that.
Mm.
They even would make CAWs on the wrestling games and like set them up all for people to download if they wanted to just like remake storylines in the games or do like a best stuff or just do their own thing. So there's a lot that the guys all built in to eFed, which is pretty interesting. Or we would do matchup pictures where it'd show each person's CAW going at it in front of like the pay-per-view stage and stuff, or whatever stage people made for their shows.
Yeah.
So we just did little things like that to make it feel more like when you watch it on TV.
Which is actually a nice touch. But the only difference is between eFed and real life, there's no backstage drama. Not usually, anyway. Everyone's quite friendly. I mean, I've made a lot of friends through eFed Wrestling. Some I wish to forget. Some, in fact, I actually have forgotten already. But yeah, if you're looking for this, I suppose we could do this in closing. If you actually fancy like an inventive shortcut, either whether you just enjoy it or you're looking forward to becoming a proper wrestler, come join us. We'll post a link in the description on you. I would post a description on YouTube below, but we'll try and do it for everyone else. So as long as you're on Facebook and you're a wrestling fan and you want to have a bit of fun, call up Red Band Pro Wrestling.
Is there anything anyone would like to plug in this week? With anything coming up? Any projects anyone's working on or anything?
I've got a shitload of interviews this week. Aside from that, you can find me on Twitter on Final Cut Gaming and on Final Cut Talk. My talk one is nicer than the Final Cut Gaming one. I'm on Twitter on Final Cut as well. I'm on Facebook under Final Cut Reviews. And you will find me and Mikey on Twitter on, the podcast we're on, basically.
Bodyslams and Drop Kicks.
That's it, baby.
Trevor, you got anything you want to promote or anything going on?
No, not a whole lot going on. Just kind of living the dream at the moment.
You want to plug in any social media stuff? People want to hit you up or?
You can hit me up on Twitter at tbent92.
Nice. And you
And
can
for our
catch
host.
me on Twitter at 5-Star Wildcard, where we'll talk wrestling, comics, and movies. You can hit me up on Instagram as Beautiful Michael, because Beautiful Joe's still one of my favorite video games to this day. And we are Body Slams and Drop Kicks, and we shall catch you next week. Thank you for joining us, Trev.
Yeah, thank you
Thanks, guys,
for
for having
joining
me.
us, mate.
Anytime. If you want to come back on, just let us know.
And we'll see everyone next week. We hope you've enjoyed it. Take care.